Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. So good. I think I say the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm a savage. So this is savage chick. Oh Lord. Okay, let's get started. So yesterday I was talking about the resurrection, and I wanted to give some time to what that is, what I see happening, and perhaps maybe what you see happening in your world, and kind of what is going on. We do see that there are tons of transformation. Um, we're in a huge, what we call a tower event. But after the tower collapses and the murk starts to settle, we then start to see the star, right? The star is our greatest wish and joy to be manifest. We also have something called the resurrection, and this happens all the time. It's not just the resurrection that was promised in the Bible or that was promised by God and the prophecies that were given of what was the promise for the children, right, of God, are the people who follow God. So the resurrection can happen in smaller, the microcosm, and now at the macrocosm. And so what I see occurring is at the macrocosm, a resurrection. And people think that the very people from the graves will rise out of the graves. And what this means, right, if we're looking at it from the space of the spirit and what's happening now in cosmology, if you looked at the cosmos and the alignment of all of the planets and the stellar bodies, right, which we call the stars, that there is an alignment of this, and we sort of see a depiction of what we see at the microcosm. So the macrocosm being the cosmos, the interstellar, the place that is above our head, which they would call the heavens at one point, and then ourself, which is the microcosm, which is interconnected. There's a connection that we cannot see, but it's there, as above, so below. So when we're talking about the resurrection at a macrocosm, we're talking about people literally overnight awakening to their divine purpose, awakening to who they are in their God self, are realizing and recognizing that they are God in motion and having the connection to the divine force. And so overnight, people are like, oh my God, I was asleep. I've had several friends contact me and say, look, this is what's going on. I don't know who to go to. Okay. Good morning. I don't know who's on here. I saw two. I think that was Curtis. I think that was Jeff. Good morning. Cheers to you guys. And lots of love. And in the cosmos, so people, friends that I had, a very dear friend of mine, she's elder than me, and she's someone that I listen to and that has helped me in my career. And so just an amazing person. She's done some amazing things in the community. And I would just say, for a lack of a better word, she's a badass, okay? And she's taught me how to become an independent contractor and how to develop my career the way that I want to. And I listened to her, and she sort of guided me. And one day she called and said, I just had this awakening. And it just all started to click. Now, it was always kind of there, but it was all of a sudden the light was on instantaneously, and her whole world shifted. And she was like, I'm not sure what to do. So we started talking, and there was some guidance and some understanding, and it was a resurrection of the past. I have another friend who's like, I feel like I'm letting go of my old self. I'm shedding my old self. I'm letting go of my old self. Now there's a process to this, not easy, right? More and more people are starting to awaken from their coffins and recognize that the very fabric of the world that we created is so fragile that at one instance can fall apart. Just at the snap of a finger, boom, It's all entangled and it all falls apart. The very reason that our societies were existing the way they were and working is because we believed in the system. We had faith in that it would work. We continued and operated in the faith that it would work. We showed up to work in the faith that we would receive money, in the faith that we would actually be able to go and feed our families and so on and so forth. But it was us. We are the ones who created that. As soon as that system was compromised in just the slightest, it all fell apart. And people started to go, what the heck? A system that I thought was so strong and so powerful is that fragile? Yeah, it is. It's the veil of Maya, right? It is the illusion that sits right in front of our face that we cannot see sometimes. But the veil of Maya, we think sometimes is like a paper towel that's like thick and dense and we can't see through it, when really it might be a mesh and we can see through it when our eyes are open. And when they're open and we can see through the mesh, we can now understand where the illusion is, what is real, and what is not real. And that's what's happening. It's sort of as though it's almost like a water hit the paper towel and you can see through it or something. And people are going, whoa, wait, what happened? How did this happen? What is going on? Good morning, Suze. As we see through the mesh, we start to see little glimpses of reality, our truth, or what is our truth, or we see the little pieces of God that we hadn't seen before. We start to open our eyes to that and we say, oh my God, this whole thing that I created was just an illusion. And that's really it. We created a game to play and the game was played out. And now we're putting to rest that game. We're saying, it's not even real. So I'm going to put to rest parts of myself that no longer serve me as a human being. And what that means is that you're putting to rest sort of worldviews or ideas or concepts or ways of engaging the world that don't serve your higher purpose. It's as though you're killing off a piece of you. Now, I don't want to say kill off because it's always kind of there, but it's kind of dying. That is the death. We're going through a death and shedding the old and resurrecting into the new. What is the new? It's the new earth. It's the new paradigm. It's the new worldview. It's the opportunity for us to get very clear about why we are here on this earth and how we can serve God and humanity. So the resurrection is us letting go of the old ways and habits and stepping into the new ways. And I've heard this pattern over and over and over again. Okay, it's not just me, but I'm just talking about people in general that I'm speaking with. Ooh, we have trolls. Hi, Dylan Troll. How are you today? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm talking, but I'm saying nothing. That's absolutely correct. If you looked at it from the Buddha standpoint, we are nothing and meaningless, just as everybody on here would be nothing and meaningless. But to get to that point, got to sort of talk it out. Words don't quite depict what we see. Good morning, Doreen. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while. I like when we get the trolls on here. So, part of the resurrection is actually shedding light on the darkness as well. I call the trolls the dark. They're sort of like the underworld. They're the ones who sort of try to throw you off your game of light, right? And the fact is not to. The point in trolls are people who try to throw you off of your game or be a darkness in the light, right? Is to get them to say, come to the dark side. Or are you truly talking or saying what you truly mean? Here's the deal, because I get this a lot, right? You get people who are naysayers or say hateful things. I do. I'm saying on this platform, people get upset for me. I have friends who are like, "What is going on?" Those people are, and I'm like, "Why are you mad? It's okay." There, I'm not here to sway anybody to think a particular way. It's up to you. Their concepts, their ideas, their tools, but it's up to you to decide how to live your life. I can't do that for you. The people that show up to do that, right, have a function in the world too. They have a function as well. I don't need, the thing is that I don't need to entertain what they're saying because I know my relationship with God. I'm merely here to tell you that you have the same ability to have your relationship with God and that you can talk to God directly and that you have the power to do that. What results for you is going to be different than what results for me, not going to be the same. But as we continue to move forward, and this pattern that I'm hearing from other individuals is like, I'm putting to rest, right, parts of myself, and I'm stepping into the new, which would be the resurrection. The resurrection into the new self, to the God self, to the self that allows you to create and be in synergy with the life force that you don't understand. Good morning, Nicole. So, Dylan, you have your ideas. That's awesome. I like to engage people who have different perspectives when they get on live. If you don't think God is real, that is totally up to you to believe or not believe. If you don't believe, that's fine. If that serves you in your life's purpose and journey, that's fine. If you feel like you have no purpose, that's fine. There's no right, wrong, good, or bad about any of this. There just is. I can only explain and describe what having faith and surrendering to God means to me and what the experience is for me. And one thing that I will say is that there are people who don't believe God is real. There are people who don't believe that there is a divine energy at play, which I can't understand that because I didn't create this stuff. So it was created from what? It's created for something greater than us, right? The masterpiece that was left on this planet was not my doing. I did not create myself. I did not create the trees. And create may not be the proper terminology, but for lack of a better word, it's hard, okay? God is for the weak. Oh, well, then I think that you have a different concept, an understanding of what I mean by God. So here's the deal. And I like to talk about this particular concept of God because it triggers a lot of things for individuals. Just the word God. We can say Yahweh, universe. We can say life force beyond our understanding, whatever you want to call it. I call it God because it's just easy to do. But when you say the word God, it's no longer God. We can never understand the full operation of what is at play. We don't have the ability to do that. Our minds are too small. Our vision and scope of the world and this universe is too small. There's things we can't even see or understand or comprehend. So yes, we can take our own life in personal responsibility. So that statement in itself is not true. It's not a true statement because not everybody who believes in God is weak-minded, and not everybody who believes in God doesn't take personal responsibility for their life. Speaking in generalities, I'll probably say that wrong. Speaking in general terms does not serve the masses because generally there's always people who engage life from a different perspective. So to make statements like that is to say that that's absolute truth. And we've had these conversations about absolute truth. Nobody has the absolute truth. And I love you, Dylan, but you yourself don't have absolute truth. Okay? You yourself don't carry the absolute ultimate truth, neither does Christopher Hitchens or Sam Harris or Natalie Pena or anybody for that matter. Because humans only can see a perspective, only a microcosm of what's really at play at the macrocosm. There's so much that we cannot comprehend, that we don't know. And we could spend our whole lives, right? We can spend our entire lives trying to figure out everything, but we don't. So what do? We turn internally. Master thyself, you will master thy universe. So when I say God, I'm not saying that there's no participation in operation between the two. That we ourselves have our own right to choose how we move our vessel in the world. But if you follow the righteous path, it'll lead you to the miracles of God. You'll be able to recognize God in motion, universe in motion, whatever that is for you. Okay. So thank you, Dylan. I will look into those individuals as well, because you have offered them as people and they sound familiar. I read a bunch of other stuff, so I like to read and I'm not afraid of information. So thank you. So, okay, so now we're talking about the resurrection and I want to continue on this thread. And thank you, Nicole. I will talk to you later. The resurrection of laying to rest the old parts of ourself and resurrecting into the new. People are starting to wake up and understand the grand illusion that is at play. People are starting to say, what is really valuable for me? What is true for me? What is real for me? In my own family, I can tell you that we had a very weird, something very, very, very traumatic happened. Okay. Very, 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 very traumatic. And it questions the very existence, the very core values of our family. But the result on the other end was this new resurrection into a new way of thinking. It sort of killed off this old pattern, these ideas that we were holding on to that didn't serve our family. Part of it was how I see you as an individual, as a family member. How do I look at you and how do I participate with you? It's easy to avoid our family. It's easy to walk away from our family. It's easy to say, I don't want to deal with this. I can't handle this. Or it's even easy to get caught up in the drama of family when there's drama. And so how do we deal with this? This is the hardest of the programs to get through, because our family is something we could say we chose it when we were up in the cosmos and we came down into a body. But did we choose it? And if we did, why did we choose to participate with these particular people? Because we come into our mother's womb and we didn't say, oh, that's the mother I want. Well, there are some ideas that would say, yes, we did. But if we chose that particular mother and father, why did we choose them? What was the purpose? When we chose them, when we were programmed, we had our own sort of personalities. Our siblings can be raised in the same exact environment and be two completely different people. How does that happen? Because we're all individuals. We all have our own way of seeing the world, and it's vastly different in how we engage. It can be vastly different from everybody else. However, as we engage it, they kind of put us in a box, is what happens. Our family will put us in this box. Now, not in a cruel way, not to be mean, not to hurt. They don't even know they're doing it. And you can never be outside the box. You're always going to be the box if you don't do the work, if you start to do the work and work on yourself and start to search internally and stand authentically and grounded in what your principles are and know that your intentions are good, even when you engage in conflict with your family and you continue on that road and continue to say, yes, this is who I am. I stand firm in who I am. And I'm doing it in the name of love, in the name of compassion and forgiveness, in the name and the intention of helping my family get better at whatever, get closer to God. When you stand in that conviction, we start to then untangle the programming and we start to engage and see that the programming is as fragile as it is strong. If we do the work, we can resurrect our family as a whole. This is not, it's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. It takes a very strong individual to go through this, because part of it is getting the naysayers. What are you doing? I don't understand. Why is this? Why is that? You're shedding old ideas and concepts, and it's fear for some people when you do that. There's a fear there when you start to shed your old ideas and concepts. They want you to be the same things because they know that they understand you that way. They can identify you that way. If they can't identify you, then they're freaking out. Like, who is this person? I don't get it. It's not calculating for me. It doesn't match up to my box that I created for you. That very program to resurrect into, okay, to be resurrected into a new way is to actually do the work. And as we do the work, we allow ourselves to untangle the parts of ourselves that have held us back, the pieces that are holding us back, the pieces that we can't let go of. And when we do that, when we surrender to it, we start to change the fabric of our lives in our family, which is not easy to do. Once that happens, miracles show up in your family, miracles show up in your life, but it takes surrender, and it takes to get there. And I will say the resurrection, I'm seeing it in my own family with my sister, right, who's now starting to awaken and say, wow, I realized these things, and came to me and said, can we chat? Can we talk? And in the talk, it was like, I did this, that, the other, and didn't realize it. And I said, and it's okay. I forgive you. I love you. But if you truly want to know who I am as a person, here's who I am. This is what I enjoy doing. To reconnect. Good morning, Nisha. To reconnect. Okay, Dylan. Okay, so this is pretty heavy, and thank you, Dylan, for sharing. Dylan says, I have lived with righteousness, and in my life, I have been beaten, molested, thrown out at 15, homeless, and then got multiple sclerosis. Life is a joke. Hard to imagine family doing all that to their son. I am so sorry to hear that, Dylan. I pray for you. And even if you don't want my prayer, even if you don't believe it, even if you don't think that it's real, I do pray for you. I pray for you. I pray for the healing of all of that was placed upon you. I can't imagine what you're going through, and I won't even try to imagine what your life is and your journey and what you went through. And I can see why you would be tainted and why you wouldn't believe. And I can see why you would say life is a joke and want to give up on it. I understand. But I'm here to tell you that there are people out there that truly do love you even though they don't know you, that truly care for your well-being, that will pray for you and for your well-being. And you don't have to accept it. You don't. You have the choice. You can reject it and you can say, I choose not to care if these people pray or whatnot. And you can choose to give up. But you can also choose to shift your life and your heart, that you can shift your internal soul and say, maybe there are people in this world that truly do care, because I truly do care. I would never ever want that kind of pain inflicted on anybody in the world. I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's good. And part of the journey is forgiveness. I mean, it's hard to say to forgive, right? Like when you've been inflicted pain and people inflicted pain upon you. And we all have our story, right? Everybody goes through suffering. Nobody's, my life isn't just this fairy tale thing and there's just this beautiful thing that happens all the time. No, it's very, very hard. There are challenges that show up. But I pray that you reconnect to the soul and that you remember that there is an energy out there that will support you and guide you through it. Whether you want to connect to it or not is totally up to you. It's your choice. I never, the reason for this Spirit and Coffee has nothing to do with making people believe a way that they don't want to believe. That's not what it's about. I honor you and your choices. And I pray that you're able to feel the hand of God on you. And that you could get resurrected again. Good morning, Reggie. And I would say that, Dylan, there's some spark of light in you still, because you wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case, because there's some sort of spark left in you, some sort of fight, maybe. So I pray for you, and I ask that everybody on this platform pray for Dylan and send a message of love and forgiveness and kindness. And that literally is the hardest thing to do, is forgive, Dylan. I know. I understand. That I do understand. And the suffering, right? So I pray for you. And even in your words that you're saying, right? Like you said, you can't wait to die and I can't wait to kill. God tells me that you yourself are in suffering right now. And I pray that the bondage of suffering be released from you, and that is taken away, no matter how you feel about God, no matter what your relationship is with God. Because right now there's this suffering and pain. So however you want to engage that is totally your choice. The way I engage it for myself, for you, is to pray for you and to send out intentions of love and healing and forgiveness. And hopefully that will support you. If not, that's fine. And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, right? It's a choice. I've had people show up here, and I called you a troll at the beginning because I've had people show up here and say hateful things to me. I have people who get on here after the fact, they think that I'm live when I'm on here, but I'm not. And they say hateful stuff. And I personally am not upset with them. because I understand the human suffering. We all suffer. And the way that we engage that suffering and the way that we articulate that suffering looks different for everybody. And some people feel resentment towards God or towards the universe or whatever you want to call it. They have a resentment. Why me? Why this? And the forgiveness part becomes a very challenging piece for them. I'm not going to forgive because how could you let me suffer? Right? There's that conversation, and it's very real for people. And I don't sit here and say it's not. That's not the point. The point is not to say, oh, you're this, you're that. And I know you're not a troll. I get it, Dylan. Thank you. I know you're not a troll. I got it after you sent the message that you're not. And thank you for sharing. That's very brave of you to share, actually. It's brave of you to get on here and to say the things that you're saying if you're going through these challenges in life. But know that your choices are yours, and you know that. And I'm neither here to make you change your mind or to make you choose differently. I can only choose how I engage with you. And this is what I'm talking about, especially for the viewers and the people that get on here all the time. This is not a platform to point fingers and say, oh, hey, you know, this is da 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 or whatever. You need to think this way. No, you think the way you think. You see life the way you see life. But is there an opportunity for you to switch the way you think so that you can have a life where you see things from a place of beauty and harmony and love and kindness, where you can get through those challenging times and see the silver lining or the rainbow? And you may not be able to, and that's okay too. There is nothing right, wrong, good or bad. There just is. It just is. And so it's not to make wrong. And I ask that individuals on here don't do that. Even when I've had some people say some really, 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 really tough stuff on here, and people really, the challenges are real for people. It's not this beautiful thing that happens. Life is the hardest thing to go through. It's not an easy thing to go through. That's why I say it's not easy. It's not. It's a challenge. And at every step, there's a challenge. And the suffering is very real. Finding a purpose is offering ourselves understanding to compute the logistics of living. Ooh, I like that. I like that, Wise Mackie. I might just take that quote and put it on my own personal page. I will quote you if that is your words. I'm sure it's your words. So getting through these challenging times and actually being brave enough. So Dylan, I will say this, you're very brave and courageous to be able to even to come on here on a platform and be vulnerable and open up and say the things that you've said. So know that you have courage, and that courage can be the very thing that supports you through your life. Your story is just as important as anybody else's. You matter just like the rest of everybody else. You serve a purpose just like everybody else, or you wouldn't be here. So I just want you to know that I love you. I do. I don't need to know you. I know you enough because I know myself. I understand suffering. And I understand compassion through the suffering, and I have compassion for you. There's no shame and vulnerability in learning If any is present, then ego is actively influencing our mindset. Yeah, and that's a tricky one, the ego. So that's a tricky, tricksy. So Dylan, I pray for your healing. If I could take that away, the suffering away from you, then I would. There's the mama. She's gonna make an grand entrance into Spirit and Coffee. She's in and out. So resurrection and thank you, Dylan. I like when people participate and they Sue says hi, mama, and people participate and they say what's going on for them because it makes it very real. Like I have my perspective, but that's just me. I'm just one person. There's a whole world out there of individuals that are experiencing life and they have their own way of viewing the world, and to engage that and to speak about that and to be able to facilitate a conversation around that is critical because I'm not, you, Dylan, have a story that others can relate to better than I could even relate to because they've gone through it. They and to be able to speak about that freely allows that to be opened up so that people can share their experiences because sometimes we hold it in so much that we're afraid to speak it that we don't and we're not able to share that with other people. But when one person steps up and says, yeah, that's happened to me, the next person steps up and they feel brave and you give them the opportunity to be courageous and brave to speak out about what is happening in their life. Now that may not interest you or it may interest you to be able to do that. Self-redemption is a part of understanding self-acceptance to facilitating growth. Yes. Transparency. Yes. Thanks, Wise Mackie. So thank you, Dylan, for sharing, because there could be people on this platform who have been molested and beaten and who can relate to that. I personally can't relate to that. I'm okay with saying I can't relate to that, but I can have compassion and I can have empathy for you and understand that. I love your pods. One of the few I follow. Thanks, Wise Mackie. Yeah, and you know, Wise Mackie, I think I like your little saying. I should have a show where we come on together. I think we should just like do a show together. It'd be cool. I want to do that with individuals. Just don't know exactly how to get that done, but eventually would like to. I keep saying it. So Dylan, I hope you're still on here and I hope you're listening. I would say that yes, please. If it entices you to be brave enough, and you know, there's individuals on here who I'm sure may feel the pain and suffering you've gone through, and maybe they view it differently than you do. Maybe they still have faith and believe in God, and maybe their soul is still there. You know, I've gone through my own suffering, right? I've been through mental abuse and stuff like that. So we never escape it. It's not, I'm not here in this, I think it's funny is it's like, well, it's this woo woo shit. No, it's not woo woo. I'm sorry. Spirit and Coffee is not a woo woo thing. It's not this woo woo. Oh, life is just beautiful and believe in there's la. No, it's raw and it's real. This is real life. This is not fake life. They were laughing at me the other day because I just will get up out of bed on my live videos. I have a podcast too, so they just hear my voice. They can't tell that I'm like just rolled out of bed. But if you went to my Facebook, you would see I literally do live TV. I don't care. There's my friends like I could hear your washer going on. And my mom passes by to get her purse, and I don't care because that's real life. What do I need fake lights for and makeup and look beautiful and glamorous and put on a show? That's not what this is. This is real life. This is true life. This is really life. And I love it. I love the fact that right now, some part of this quarantine, or what's going on where people aren't having meetings anymore, and you get on Zoom and you see real life. You see their kids and they're like, wait, I got to go get my kid. I got to do this. And you're like, we don't realize that this operation of real life is happening because we just see the polished person in front of us when we go to these meetings. We don't know what's happening in the background. So Nisha says, I was abused in many ways that he was, and it's very challenging. It was the highest and earliest lessons of forgiveness. I know God is still good. So see, thank you, Nisha, for sharing. Do you see? So when you start to share, I didn't know that about Nisha. Nisha shows up to my show and never shared that. And I think people are just there. Some of them are afraid to be vulnerable. It's okay. You don't have to be vulnerable, but when you're brave enough to be vulnerable, people start to open up. People start to share their experiences with one another. And then we realize that we're more alike than we are different, that we all go through suffering. And that's in Buddhism, right? There is suffering. I was talking to a friend about Buddhism, and the Buddhism is very, very easy, simple process. There is suffering. Our suffering is attachment. That's pretty much the basis of all our suffering, is our attachment to stuff. I can relate to maybe not exactly you're going through, Dylan. For myself, I say my belief in God has given me God's grace to move on, forgive myself and other people who hurt me. The experience gave me authentic ability to connect and be humble, and that's Nisha. So there you go. And Dylan, these are suggestions, not by force. You don't have to accept them as your reality. You can choose to remain upset with God, and it's your choice. But know that there are people praying for you, and that there are people in the world that truly do understand your story and are still here saying, we are kind and loving people, and that there are kind and loving people in the world, even as a result of going through the darkness. My faith in God made me stronger and at peace. God bless you, Dylan. Thank you guys for showing up. Bless you, Nisha. I just love it. This is what and literally here we go. This is part of shedding the old. Now there's participation, which is beautiful. Now imagine. Okay, love you. Bye.
Have a good day, everybody.
Mama says have a good day.
Running late.
She's running late. Now imagine I got upset. Now here's the deal. This is why I love Spirit and Coffee, because when we bring up the individuals that get on here and are angry, frustrated, or whatever, and they say this and that, and then we're able to engage them and they understand. We don't dismiss the anger. We don't dismiss the frustrated. We don't dismiss the people who, why are people saying this? Why do people say that? My curiosity is, what is the reason for it? I'm not upset with you. If you don't love God, I'm not mad at you. If you don't have faith, I'm not going to call you names and treat you bad. I'm going to try to understand and have compassion and dig a little deeper. That's why we don't get upset on here, even when trolls show up too. We love them. We show them love. And we're like, we love you no matter what. And I can tell you that there have been people who've showed up here and the light's gone on for them, because we're here saying there are people out here that suffer, but we love you. We're not mad at you. We're not upset with you. You have your ideas, you have your ways of thinking in the world. And guess what? That's beautiful, because it matters. And you were brave enough to step up. And now you've opened up the door for other individuals to share. That's beautiful. That's a gift. Thank you, Dylan. Let's see. Perception is key to comprehension and assessing our experience. As good or bad, which is chosen to label the experience determines how I will how it will affect us mentally. Yes, it's the labels that we put on things. Absolutely. One of the master trainers, mastery lies in distinguishing distinctions, understanding those extinct distinctions, and understanding. Nisha says, "I love you, Dylan." So hopefully you're hearing that, and hopefully you're still on here because I don't know if you are. It doesn't show me if you are. Um, the labels, exactly. So how we engage a label or how we I love your authenticity, Suze. How we engage labels is critical too, right? The labels that we have. So if we say upset, we're going to engage that word upset in a certain way. We're going to say, I'm upset. I understand the triggers. I understand where I feel that in the body. I understand the reaction to that particular word. And we engage it that way. If someone says you're upset, it triggers something in us. Or if someone says a certain word, it triggers something in us. It's a stimulus within us, the vibrational frequencies throughout the body that attach to that particular word or label. And then we engage our life through that. So yes, absolutely. So even in the word God, which is a trigger for a lot of people, only because they have this preconceived notion about what God is. When people ask me, well, God, what do you mean by God? They automatically go to perhaps Christianity and that's not God for me. Again, it's a personal relationship that we create. I use the word God because it's easy to use. We could say Yahweh or the universe or creator or the grand designer, whatever it is, or however it's labeled, right? Once we label it, it's not that anymore. But for the purposes of communicating and getting a expression across so that you can understand a message, we have to use words and symbols. And yes, there's a lot of stories around that particular word God. A lot of triggers, a lot of misconceptions, a lot of stuff has derived from that particular word itself. That word will trigger in people in different ways, which is just, it's quite amazing. If we see and know ourselves as formless with fluidity, yes, then we will flow freely without vibrational frequency in synergy. Yes, and that is the flow that I've been that I was talking about yesterday. You were not here yesterday, why is my key? But will flow with our vibration. Did I say? I think. With our vibration. Okay, I know I was gonna say without, but okay. Anyway, I've been in flow. That's me trying to connect to flow. And that's, you have to shed a lot of layers to be there and be in full surrender of flow, because it is vulnerability and it is a surrender. Those are the two practices that come with that. And it's scary. It's like jumping off a bridge with a zip line, that's our bungee jumping, like the full surrender that cord, and you have faith that the cord is going to catch you. That's vulnerable because you can't do anything. You have nothing to grab onto. You're just free falling. And those are some of the practices that I have people do to experience vulnerability, not necessarily bungee jumping, but sort of experiencing hanging upside down on a monkey bar or something similar. They could go skydiving if they choose, but to fully surrender. I'm just going to love you and shut up. No, I love that you're talking. I talk too much. I love when people talk. It's funny. I will say this. This is the last thing I'm going to say before I go, but it's kind of funny because I went to go visit a friend of mine. I don't know if he's still on here. He watches these as well. I was like, well, what was your analysis of me? He's like, well, you're a little different than I thought in person. I said, well, it's always different when you meet someone in person, right? You hear them, you watch them, maybe you talk to them on the phone a little bit or text them, but when you meet them in person, it's different, right? There's the energy, right? You can feel the energy. And so basically, okay, so Curtis is still here. Then that's kind of funny because this is it. And I said, well, what did you think? And well, I thought you would be like more like, I don't know, I guess more energetic, or, you know, and I can get that way, but I do actually listen a lot. So I talk a lot, but I do listen too. I don't just, I don't just fill the space with talking when I'm with other people. I like to listen and question and get to know and understand people. So when people, right, when people actually, yeah, you thought I was intense. Oh, okay, intense. There you go. And so when people get around me, you know, I like to just listen and question, and I do most of my talking on Spirit and Coffee. I think I get everything out in the morning, and then I kind of just go literally by myself. I end up, good morning, Poetic. I end up by myself just doing my thing, and no one's here. So it's just me and myself and me, and there's no one to talk to, and it's sort of quiet. Less intense in person for me. Yeah. And I let it all out on Spirit and Coffee. That's probably why. But I've learned to be mellow. I used to be very like that, and then once you find your tranquility and your peace, you don't need to say anything. And in fact, there's times where you don't need to say anything. Words aren't necessary all the time. Spirit and Coffee, they're necessary, because otherwise it'd be a podcast of silence, and then people would be like, what is this? And they would just get off. I fill every single ounce of air time with words, except for maybe a pause, like for 2 seconds or whatever, which is hilarious. Um, but there you go. And understanding the flow, but also understanding individuals' energies as well. Because if I'm with a person who has high energy, I'm not going to match their high energy. I'm going to sort of bring it up to a level that allows the balance to be there. And I'm self-aware of all this. I look at my environment first before I engage it. I don't just go and blah, you know, let the ego take over. I sort of scope it out. And then I adjust and I say, oh, okay. And I listen and I observe, and I'm like, how can I be of value in this situation with these individuals? Because I'm here to add value. I'm here to leave something of value behind rather than take away. How do I leave value behind? Where is it at? It doesn't mean that I'm the center of attention. That's not how it works. No. So, and look, I'm just playing with my crystals, Curtis, because they're there. So there you go, and beautiful. And so let's see. I know that I want to read the last. So Dylan, I can talk about that vulnerable time, because that's the last time my guard was down. No more ever break the wall I built up. The wall that you built up is, I don't see it as a wall. And maybe that's what you want to see it as, Dylan, but I think that you've been able to share it, right? Being able to express it is actually you tearing down the wall. Most people don't talk about that stuff. They don't let out. So again, Dylan, whatever you choose, like you said, nothing's going to change you, and that's okay. But just know that we love you. We're here for you. We pray for you. We have compassion, and we want the best for you. I do. I want the best for you in your life, whatever that is for you. Okay? So there you have it. Thanks, Dylan, for engaging in the conversation. Just beautiful all the way around. And thank you guys for chiming in, Nisha. We have Suze, Wise Mackey, and everybody else for chiming in. Your words are just as important. So there you go. So I love you guys, and it's Friday, yay! So I think it's Friday. If it's not Friday, please tell me it's not Friday. I've said this happy Friday before, and it was totally Wednesday. And then I was like, what am I doing? I was like, no one told me nothing. They were just laughing at me the whole time. They're like, that girl's crazy. It's not Friday, but we're not going to tell her that's okay. And I'm like, oh, man. but I believe it's Friday. So have a fantastic, phenomenal, funky, freaky, fabulous, fantastical Friday. And I will be seeing you Monday. Okay, bye.